It's like, you're sitting there, you want to get stronger, put on some muscle, but then bam, you're hit with this tidal wave of information. It's like
Wow.
everyone's got the secret formula, but they all contradict each other. Train every single day, or like rest a whole week.
Right.
High reps, low reps. You need a degree in exercise science just to pick a weight.
It can feel like you're drowning in advice and who's actually right,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. That's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're tackling a training philosophy that was all about cutting through that BS, using logic, using science. I'm talking about Mike Mentzer and his heavy-duty system.
A system, yeah, that really aimed to simplify things, to get back to the fundamentals.
Right. And to help us unpack it all, we've got some excerpts from Mentzer himself, straight from the source.
His own writing, laying out the core principles and how to use them.
Yeah. So think of this as your heavy-duty crash course.
Exactly.
No fluff,
Right.
just the essential stuff. So what we really want you to walk away with today, is a solid understanding of this whole high-intensity approach.
Huh.
And who knows, maybe you'll even decide that heavy duty is the missing piece, the more efficient way, a more effective way for you to reach your strength goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth considering, especially if you feel like you've hit a wall with other methods.
For sure. All right, so let's get into it. What about this heavy duty? Where did this idea even come from? What's the history here?
Well, what's fascinating is that Mentzer, he didn't just approach this like, okay, lift heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was really an intellectual about it.
Mm.
He believed that bodybuilding, all this strength training, it needed to be rooted in logic, in reason, in scientific principles.
Not just like bro science, right?
No,
Yeah.
exactly. Not just anecdotes, not just following trends. He was all about critical thinking.
Interesting. So no blindly following the latest influencer,
No,
right?
he wanted you to think for yourself. And a huge influence on his thinking was Arthur Jones, the guy behind the Nautilus machines.
Oh yeah, Nautilus. Those machines were everywhere.
Right. Well, Jones was a big proponent of this idea, momentary muscular failure.
Okay.
So that point where you literally cannot do another rep with good form.
I see.
That, he said, was the key trigger for muscle growth.
I see.
And that concept, it really had a profound impact on Mentzer's own work.
Makes sense. So was Mentzer just like, yep, Jones nailed it, I'm adopting this wholesale, or did he kind of tweak things?
So he had huge respect for Jones, but he didn't just stop there. He kind of took those core ideas and ran with them, pushed them even further, almost to their logical extreme, you could say. That's how he came up with heavy duty. Like, he felt Jones hadn't gone far enough in reducing training volume or in emphasizing rest and recovery.
Okay, so what are the non-negotiable principles of this heavy-duty philosophy?
Okay, so the foundation rests on a few key pillars. First up, high intensity. And listen, when Mentzer said intensity, he wasn't just talking about lifting heavy. He meant the effort, the level of exertion you're putting into each set, to the point of, you guessed it, momentary muscular failure.
So every set is like a battle, basically.
Every working set, yeah. You're going all out. It has to be your max effort in that moment.
Got it. So no just coasting through with a challenging weight. You're fighting for every rep. What else is essential to this approach?
Right alongside high intensity is low volume. Now, this is where things get really interesting because it goes against a lot of traditional thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Mentzer was all about keeping workouts short, infrequent. We're talking maybe one set per exercise, taken to failure.
Hold on, one set. But I've always heard you need multiple sets to really stimulate growth. Why would he advocate for so little?
His reasoning was this. That first super intense set, it recruits those high threshold muscle fibers, the ones with the most growth potential.
Okay.
But after that, additional sets, they mainly just cause metabolic stress, without much extra muscle fiber activation.
I see.
Now, the science on this is still debated, but that was his thinking.
Yeah.
He basically argued, if you're truly going all out on that first set, you've done what's needed to trigger growth. More sets after that, redundant, possibly even counterproductive, because it could hinder recovery.
So the growth trigger, he's saying, is that peak intensity, not just grinding out more reps.
Exactly. Not just the total volume of work.
That's really different from what most people say. So if you're only doing one super intense set, I'm guessing recovery is super important.
You're right on the money. Infrequent training, that's another cornerstone of heavy duty.
Okay.
Mentzer, he really hammered home that your muscles need time to rebuild and grow. And after such an intense effort, that could mean several days off, maybe even a full week before you hit that same muscle group
A
again.
whole week. That's a long break, especially for someone used to hitting the gym multiple times a week.
Yeah, I know, it seems like a lot.
Yeah.
But he argued that muscle growth doesn't actually happen in the gym. It happens afterwards while you're resting. So you got to prioritize that process.
Makes sense. So the more you train, the more you grow. That idea goes out the window, right?
He'd say it's the opposite. You grow outside of the gym.
Interesting.
And he'd also say that everyone's different. Some people recover faster than others.
Of course. Genetics, nutrition, sleep, stress.
Exactly. So your training frequency, it needs to be tailored to you.
Right.
What's good for one person might not be good for another.
Okay, so far we've got high intensity, low volume, infrequent training. What other big ideas are part of heavy duty?
Another huge one is proper form.
Mhm.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Since you're going to failure with that one set, your technique has to be perfect.
Right, to protect yourself from injury.
Exactly. And to make sure you're actually working the intended muscles. This isn't about ego lifting or sacrificing form just to lift heavier.
You want to make sure you're hitting the right muscles efficiently and safely, especially with that one all-out set.
Absolutely. Every rep counts.
I bet. And what about, getting stronger over time? I'm guessing heavy duty has a specific approach for that too, right?
Yeah, that final key principle is progressive overload. Basically consistently pushing yourself to do a little bit more over time.
Got it. So even though the volume is low, you're still looking for ways to challenge yourself.
Exactly. This could mean slowly increasing the weight, maybe just by a tiny amount, or it could mean squeezing out an extra rep with perfect form before you bump up the weight.
I see.
Even small improvements, they're huge in this context because you're already working at your limit.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got the theory down, but what would an actual heavy-duty workout look like? Like what exercises, how many reps, that kind of thing?
So a typical heavy-duty workout would be short but brutal. Mentzer, he really liked compound movements, the ones that work multiple muscle groups at the same time.
Okay, yeah, like squats and deadlifts.
Yeah, squats, bench presses, rows, overhead presses, the big ones.
Efficient too.
Exactly. Get the most bang for your buck, especially with that single set approach.
Right. And how would you perform that one set? Is there like a specific technique?
The execution, yeah, it's crucial. You typically do a slow and controlled positive movement. That's when you're lifting the weight. And then an equally controlled negative movement when you're lowering it.
So no jerking or momentum?
Nope. It's all about maximizing the time your muscles are under tension.
Ah, I see. Really squeezing every second of work out of that set.
Right. And then you go until you hit failure. Like, true. Can't do another rep failure.
Intense. So was that all just one set to failure done, or did he ever add anything else to increase the intensity?
He did mention some advanced techniques that you could use sometimes,
Okay.
like forced reps, where a partner helps you get past failure, or a rest pause, where you take mini breaks within the set to squeeze out a few more reps.
Wow.
And then there's negatives, focusing on the lowering part of the movement with extra weight.
Sounds hardcore.
But he was clear that these were like occasional tools, not for every workout. You don't want to overdo it and wreck your recovery.
Okay, so after this intense short workout, what's next? We touched on recovery earlier, but let's dive deeper. What's the heavy-duty take on rest?
This was huge for Mentzer. He was adamant about getting enough rest. Like, he truly believed that's when the magic happens.
Right, the muscle building?
Yes. While you're recovering, not while you're lifting. And he thought overtraining was a massive problem, leading to plateaus, injuries, even muscle loss.
So less is more in this philosophy.
Pretty much. You got to give your body time to adapt, repair, and build.
Right.
And again, he emphasized that everyone's different. How much rest you need, it depends on your genetics, what you eat, your sleep, stress level.
It's not one size fits all.
Exactly. You got to listen to your body.
Now, I'm sure this philosophy going against a lot of what people think, it's got to have some critics. What do people say against heavy duty? What are some things to watch out for?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a big departure from the norm. And some people just don't believe that one set can be enough. They think you need more volume for optimal growth.
What would Mentzer say to that?
He'd come back to that idea of intensity being the key driver. One set, but make it count.
Interesting.
Another thing to consider is warming up.
Oh, yeah, of course.
With heavy duty, your working sets are so intense, you really got to prepare those muscles and joints.
Right.
Otherwise, injury risk goes way up.
Makes sense. Is there anything else about heavy duty that might be challenging for people?
Well, the intensity itself, mentally and physically, it can be tough.
Yeah.
Consistently pushing to failure It takes a lot of focus and discipline.
Mm-hmm. And a high pain tolerance.
Right. And for beginners, starting slowly is crucial.
Yeah.
Don't jump right into max intensity. You got to build up to it. Learn the technique. Let your body adapt.
So it's a process, not just about throwing around heavy weights from day one.
Exactly.
One thing that really stood out to me from Mentzer's writing was this idea of, it's not just about the physical lifting.
Oh, yeah, the mind-muscle connection.
Yes. He really stressed that, didn't he?
He did. He believed you should be super focused on the muscles you're working, trying to consciously contract them as hard as you can during the whole movement.
So it's like a mental exercise as much as a physical one.
Right. It's not just about moving the weight from point A to point B. It's about feeling those muscles work.
Makes sense. So heavy duty is deliberate, conscious, and mentally focused.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've covered a lot here. Let's recap for our listeners. What are the big takeaways from Mike Mentzer and heavy duty?
So the core principles are high intensity, meaning pushing every set to failure. Low volume, often just one set per exercise.
Right.
Infrequent training with lots of rest between workouts.
Yeah.
Proper form, super important for safety and effectiveness. And progressive overload, always looking to challenge yourself a bit more.
So basically you're using short bursts of max effort to stimulate muscle growth and then giving your body plenty of time to recover and build.
Exactly.
I think that's a good place to wrap up this deep dive. And we'll leave you with this thought. In a world where more is often seen as better, maybe heavy duty with its less is more approach, maybe that's worth considering.
Especially if you're busy or you've hit a plateau with other methods. It might be the more efficient, more effective path for you.
It's definitely food for thought.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this heavy-duty deep dive.
It was a pleasure.